the emblems or seals of two nations were chosen almost at the same time. Both were former British territories, although they're separated by thousands of miles. Both of these seals were based on stone sculptures from great antiquity. Both images had been preserved over millennia against all odds. Both seals reflected a cultural consensus in these respective countries, and both were intended to represent a new old land in the making. So take a look at this picture. Tell me if you can identify or guess which country's seal it is. They're the same. Anyone? Not Iran. Former British country, I think I heard said over here, yes, India, the country India. India adopted this seal back in 1950. It is, I'll hold it up again, it's 4 lions based on a 3rd century stone carving. They're standing back to back at the base of a lotus blossom, and under it is written, "Truth alone triumphs," in Devanagari script. Now, there are no deities on the seal, which would have offended both the Muslim and the Hindu communities. And that quote, "Truth alone triumphs," it has both a religious overtone, but is also palatable to secularists. In that way, the seal belonged to none, which made it acceptable to all. I call this seal to mind today as we hold India in our prayers after the devastating plane crash that killed over 200 people. May they know comfort and strength. Exploring what is included and what is not included on a country's seal offers a glimpse into that country's vision and values. This morning, I'd like to focus on the seal of that other former British territory, as you might guess, Israel. I call it to mind today because the design actually comes directly from our Parsha this morning, and because it offers us an opportunity and a way to reflect at this critical hour for Israel and for the Jewish people. I believe Israel's seal contains a message of history and of hope that we desperately need this Shabbat. Here's a picture of Israel's seal. I'm sure many of you are familiar with it. As you can see, it is a menorah flanked on either side by branches, actually olive branches. The seal was designed by Gabriel and Maxim Shamir. They were 2 brothers from Latvia who studied graphics and design in Berlin before making Aliyah in the 1930s. If you're interested, there's actually an entire chapter on the design process and selection in this book called The Menorah by Stephen Fine. I find it absolutely fascinating, but I'm only going to share the highlights with you this morning. Israel's seal was chosen by Vadat Semel HaMedina, the Committee of the State Seal, in February 1949. And as you might expect, it was not without some controversy. Some objected to certain design elements. They didn't like the brutally modernist style. And some didn't like the typeface. And others thought that the olive branches were too large in comparison with the menorah. Rabbi Isaac Herzog, Israel's first chief rabbi, he had a different objection, not aesthetic, but halachic. You see, we read in our parsha, "B'halotcha ner tamid," when you go up to the menorah. The word "b'halotcha" is like the word aliyah, which means going up. Rashi explains that "b'halotcha" refers not just to the flame that rises, but to the fact that the menorah itself was high and Aaron had to go up in order to reach the wicks. The Talmud claims that the original menorah was raised up not on steps, but it actually stood on basically a tripod on 3 legs. But what do you see in this picture? Not those legs, but a hexagonal base of steps. Thus, Rabbi Herzog objected to the fact that the design of the menorah deviated from the rabbi's understanding of the Torah's original design. Others objected to the branches. Here you see that they are rounded, but Rambam Maimonides says that they should be straight. If you've ever seen a Chabad menorah, it's based on the Rambam's interpretation. Surprisingly, few Israelis objected to the choice of a menorah as the primary symbol for the seal. You see, the menorah had been a symbol since ancient times in synagogues and cemeteries, in mosaic tiles. Jump ahead to the 20th century, Jabotinsky's right-wing revisionist movement used this menorah on its flag. And kibbutzim, which tended to be more secular and left-leaning than Jabotinsky's right-leaning, they actually put menorahs on top of water towers in kibbutzim. In other words, the choice of a menorah could be claimed by ordinary Israelis, by religious and secular, by right and by left, to be their own. But with hundreds of ancient menorahs from which to choose, it is this particular menorah that is noteworthy and compelling, because this menorah is based on, does anyone remember? The design from the Arch of Titus, the Arch of Titus. Now recall, this Arch of Titus, which was erected in Rome in the year 81, it was erected to commemorate the destruction of the temple and the exile of the Jewish people a decade earlier in the year 70. The Arch of Titus famously depicts Roman soldiers parading vessels looted from the temple with the menorah at its center. It is this menorah, the one that symbolizes exile, that the Shamir brothers placed on Israel's seal to symbolize not exile, but now return. For centuries, this menorah represented destruction, but now it is a sign of redemption. What was once a symbol of derision became a symbol of national pride. There's one additional element to the menorah that is worthy of consideration, and that is that the Shamir brothers placed olive branches on the side of the menorah. On a design level, using a wreath, it was just common in European seals. But the choice here reflects the vision of Zechariah that Elnatan read in this morning's Haftarah. What do you see? The angel asked the prophet Zechariah. I see a menorah of gold, and by it are 2 olive branches, one on the right and one on the left. Now, when we hear olive branch, we can't help but think that it is a symbol of our hopes for peace. But in the passage, the 2 branches actually represent earthly leaders, namely Zerubbabel, the governor of Judah, and Yoshua, the high priest. That is to say, the olive branches symbolize not just leaders, but 2 kinds of leaders, political and spiritual. Both were necessary then and now. The governor and later the king ensured that the people would be safe and prosperous, and the priest cared for the people's soul and spirit. As the passage continues, the prophet Zechariah turned to the angel and asked, "What do these things mean?" "I don't know," said the angel, and Zechariah famously said, "Not by might and not by power, but by my spirit, said the Lord of hosts. Lo b'chayil v'lo b'koach ki im beruchi." Not by might and not by power, but by spirit. How should we understand that phrase, particularly right now? There are times when we need might and power. For Israel, this is such a time. Israel has every right to defend herself from Iran's explicit threat with resourcefulness, with brilliance, with the support of allies like the United States. I hope that Israel uses that power forcefully and accurately, carefully and judiciously to turn back the clock on Iran's nuclear ambitions. We stand with Israel in this critical hour, and we stand in awe, in pride, in gratitude at the IDF at this time when might is sadly necessary. But Zechariah and the state's seal remind us not by might alone and not by power alone, ki'im beruchi, but also by spirit. Israel has the most sophisticated fighter planes and Iron Dome systems. They have the best trained soldiers, the most brilliant scientists, and we pray the wisest leaders. But something else is needed, ruchi, spirit, and Israel has that too. We see that spirit in Sabras, the tough, sometimes prickly Israelis who have faced existential threats several times in their short 77-year history. I heard that ruach, that spirit, a few weeks ago. I was listening to Israeli radio. Woman got on and she was explaining how she was awakened in the middle of the night by sirens because of incoming Houthi missiles. Well, after the all-clear signal, she couldn't go back to sleep. What did she do? She said with a chuckle, "Kivan shevkar haiti ani afiti ugot l'Shabbat. Toda l'chutim shani muchana l'Shabbat." She said, since I was already up, well, I just baked my cakes for Shabbat. Thanks to the Houthis, I'll be ready for Shabbos. I heard that same spirit again on Israel's radio yesterday. They were interviewing a rabbi talking about how to observe this Shabbat, because you have to understand, in Israel, all synagogues are closed this Shabbat to avoid large gatherings. The host bemoaned, the host of the radio show bemoaned, and he said, "What kind of Shabbos is this going to be?" And the rabbi, without missing a beat, said, "Well, we must make it a Tov lahodot l'Adonai kind of Shabbos." Quoting the Psalm for Shabbat, he said, on this Shabbos, we must give thanks. Thanks for our family and our friends. Thanks for our land. Thanks for our giburim, our heroes who are fighting to protect us. And we must give thanks to God for our lives. Talk about ruach. I mean, here he is in the middle of a war, and he's encouraging us to express gratitude on this day. Chaverim, not only by might, not only by power, but also by spirit. And this is where you and I, we come in. Chayalim, soldiers, are going to battle with weapons and tremendous force. And we must go to battle with our ruach, with our spirit. It's up to those of us who do not live directly on the front lines to support those who do. We can lift their spirit, reaching out to family and friends in Israel, reaching out to one another who have loved ones in Israel, especially those serving in the IDF. We can lift their spirits with calls and with emails. We can lift their spirits and our own with song and with study, with prayer and with Shabbos. Because as much as we are glued to the news, we also need to take a break, to turn it off, to breathe, to renew our spirit, our ruach. Ruach, ruach, ruach. finally, we note the verse says, not by might and not by power, but by my Spirit. Ki'im beruchi. We need God's Spirit. And so we beseech God today. We pray, God, guide Israelis to develop the might and to deploy the power. And we pray, God, bestow upon us some of your Spirit, the Spirit to endure difficult days ahead, the Spirit of our ancestors who, after 2,000 years, reclaimed their symbol and their land, the Spirit to turn tragedy into triumph, destruction into redemption, the Spirit to achieve the vision of the prophet, a time when our people and our world shines with ultimate peace. The Spirit that has us say, Tov lehodot l'Adonai, in the middle of a war, and the Spirit to sing with all our heart. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai. 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 O Davinu Chai, O Davinu Chai, O Davin. If you have family in Israel, stand. O Davinu Chai, O Davinu Chai. If you have friends in Israel, stand. Nu Chai, Am Yisrael. If you stand with Israel, stand. Israel Chai. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai. O Davinu Chai, O Davinu Chai. O Davinu, O Davinu, O Davinu Chai. O Davinu Chai, O Davinu Chai. O Davinu, O Davinu, O Davinu Chai. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael 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 Chai. O Davinu Chai, O Davinu Chai. O Davinu, O Davinu, O Davinu Chai. O Davinu Chai, O Davinu Chai. O Davinu, O Davinu, O Davinu Chai. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael 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 Chai. O Davinu Chai, O Davinu Chai. O Davinu, O Davinu, O Davinu Chai. O Davinu Chai, O Davinu Chai. O Davinu, O Davinu, O Davinu Chai. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael 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 Chai. O Davinu Chai, O Davinu Chai. O Davinu, O Davinu, O Davinu Chai. O Davinu Chai, O Davinu Chai. O Davinu, O Davinu, O Davinu Chai. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael 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 Chai. O Davinu Chai, O Davinu Chai. O Davinu, O Davinu, O Davinu Chai. O Davinu Chai, O Davinu Chai. O Davinu, O Davinu, O Davinu Chai. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai. Am Israel, Am Israel, Am Israel Chai. Od Avinu Chai, Od Avinu Chai. Od Avinu, Od Avinu, Od Avinu Chai. Od Avinu Chai, Od Avinu Chai. Od Avinu, Od Avinu, Od Avinu Chai. Am Israel, Am Israel, Am Israel 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 Chai. Od Avinu Chai, Od Avinu Chai. Od Avinu, Od Avinu, Od Avinu Chai. Od Avinu Chai, Od Avinu Chai. Od Avinu, Od Avinu, Od Avinu Chai. Am Israel, what are the rest of you waiting for? Am Israel Chai. Join. Am Israel, Am Israel, Am Israel Chai. Am Israel, Am Israel, Am Israel Chai. Am Israel, Am Israel, Am Israel Chai. Od Avinu Chai, Od Avinu Chai. Od Avinu, Od Avinu, Od Avinu Chai. Od Avinu Chai, Od Avinu Chai. Od Avinu, Od Avinu, Od Avinu Chai. Shabbat Shalom. Turn back in our Sidurim, Amud 155, page 155.